All right, according to the Wall Street Journal, the IRS is about to go beast mode on the American people. I don't think that's a good thing. They're beefing up a brand new fleet of cars for their tax collectors, and they're going all in on investigating the middle class. Now, that's thanks to the $45.6 billion in additional funding that they've got thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act. Thanks, Democrats. And Politico is trying to spin this into a win for the Biden administration, but he had nothing to do with it. This was the deal that Senator Joe Manchin cut. He made it happen, not Biden. Even the Washington Post is calling out this convenient success, all while Biden was back in isolation. Take a look.
This has been one of the most successful weeks of the president's tenure in the White House so far. I'm wondering if it's just a coincidence that it's happened while he has largely been isolating in the White House. The CHIPS bill has passed, an historic agreement with Mr. Schumer.
What are you trying to say here?
I'm just wondering if it's
All right, let's bring in tonight's reaction for our company, For Reaction. Senior contributor at The Federalist and deputy editor at Real Clear Investigations, Ben Weingarten, along with the host of O'Connor and Company, Larry O'Connor. Larry, I want to start with you. I mean, here you have the Washington Post basically saying, hey, no coincidence that they're giving these wins. The media is trying their best to give Biden wins. But the bottom line is it wasn't his win. The big reconciliation win is because Joe Manchin decided that he wanted to resurrect this thing and put a deal together. If it wasn't for Manchin, there would be no deal. It's Manchin's win.
Yeah, it is a little embarrassing, isn't it, Sean, to say that the president's had his best week and he's been, strung out on Paxlovid with wild, buggy eyes and hacking up a lung. He didn't have anything to do with this. If this was his best week, then his two major accomplishments in entire career was this week where he was nowhere to be seen and this thing happened, and winning the presidency from his basement. You're right to point out it has nothing to do with him, and it is an embarrassment that the media is trying to resurrect this guy.
Ben, I mean, I get the Washington Post reporter in that briefing room. He's asking Karine Jean-Pierre, the press secretary, hey, is it just coincidence that you get the two biggest pieces of things that have happened in a while, the CHIPS Act and this reconciliation, at a time when the president's basically isolated? She laughs it off and goes, what do you make of this? But there is something to be said for getting Biden out of the way and letting the process work. I mean, it actually isn't a coincidence. It just shows that if he's out of the way, actual deals can get done among his own party.
Well, they ran a campaign with a non-entity, and perhaps his administration, so-called, will run like a more finely tuned machine if he's not actually there. And of course, it's been, those who are feeding him his talking points, his index cards, that have been the ones who have been crafting the myriad policies, essentially a second Obama presidency here with the likes of Susan Rice running points on domestic policy and beyond. But if this was a successful week, first of all, I shudder to think what the least successful week of this presidency will look like. And also, this is a success, so-called a legislative success, as Larry noted, thanks to Chuck Schumer cajoling Joe Manchin into coming up to a deal that's lesser than what President Biden wanted himself. But it's a disaster for the American people. You talk about the IRS. They are using your tax dollars to then go after small businesses, family-owned businesses, and try and take more tax dollars out of their pockets under an act, which of course means the exact opposite of what it says, Inflation Reduction. It does no such thing. It's basically a huge payoff to Democrat donors. It's satisfying the radical environmental activists. The American people suffer every single way under this bill. That's a huge achievement, punishing Americans.
It goes back to this idea of redefining things, or redefining what a win is, because everybody loses under this bill right now. Larry, yesterday in an interview, Jill Biden said this. I have to read the quote because it's stunning. I don't want to sound like a political ad, but we have done so much. She went on to say this. I wish people could see more of what Joe has accomplished and how hard he's working. I mean, I don't understand this. We see it. We live it. We go to the grocery store, the gas station, the super. I mean, all of the places we see his policies at work. But Biden and the mainstream media are behind him, and he still can't get a good story. And yet she's out here saying he just deserves more credit. For what? What does he deserve more credit for? Afghanistan? Inflation? What is it that she thinks he deserves credit for?
Sean, listen, she's a loving wife. I'll leave it at that. I mean, honestly, this presidency is a disaster. This week, he once again broke his own record by having the lowest approval rating of any president in modern history at this time. And Ben is so right about this bill. The American people are going to suffer. I've been looking at some of the analysis over at Tax Foundation, taxfoundation.org. It's an unbiased, objective group that looks at this stuff. Not only are taxes going to go up, $300 billion of revenue to the federal government. Joe Manchin says there's no tax increase. Where does he think the federal government makes their money? They're not selling breakfast tacos and T-shirts. And it's going to drop the gross domestic product. 30,000 people are probably going to lose their jobs over the course of this bill. It is a complete and total disaster, and we're all going to suffer for it.
That's right. Ben, Larry brought up his approval rating. At best, it's 38%, right? That's not too far off of where Trump's was at a lot of times during his presidency. But Trump had Hollywood against him, the government against him, big media against him, big tech against him. Biden has all of that in his favor, and he still has a 38% approval rating. It's because his policies aren't ingratiating himself with the American people. That's it, plain and simple. Even the media, big tech, late night can't sell it for him.
It's really like a totally inverse paradigm here, where you have policies so disastrous that even with every single culturally influential institution, plus the entirety of the federal government and the regime media on his side, the policies are so disastrous that even with all their propaganda, they can't dissuade Americans from seeing what they see with their eyes and feel in their pocketbooks. On the other hand, Trump was able to achieve that favorability rating precisely because his policies were so successful, and despite the fact that he had a massive onslaught of every single institution in the country working to sabotage and subvert him. So Democrats always claim, well, we just haven't gotten the messaging right. That's because it's so bad in reality, the messaging can't overcome it. Conversely, Trump was able to stand at that favorability rating, however low it was, but that was with a mass of huge accomplishments that even with all the propaganda on the other side still broke through for the American people. It's remarkable.
Exactly. Yeah. Ben, Larry, thank you very much for a great conversation. Look forward to seeing you both back soon.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.